All righty. Good morning, everybody. All right, there. I got my test, making sure that y'all can hear me as well as see me. Right? Okay. So, today and kind of it's an extra live. I'm still, as I explained to Scott in, he added me to the schedule, but I'm going to promise every second Sunday of the month, um, at the 10:45 to 11:45 ish time frame. Um, but then I'm gonna slowly work on adding a few here and there on other Sundays at the same time, and then maybe random ones during the weeks or whatever when I get a new new thing in the mail that I want to do a live unboxing of, that kind of a thing. But yeah, good morning. Good morning. How you doing, Robert? And I know Bama's in here. How are you, sir? But yeah, so today's talk, I wanted to talk about, the plan was to talk about travels, all the places I've been, all the cool things I've seen and done. Uh, been very fortunate. My parents love to travel; they still do. Um, just not with me anymore because they don't want to drag all of my kids with me. But I get invited to a couple things here and there, and I've tried to say, hey, we're going. This ain't too far for you. You want to spend the night with us, camp out with us? But yeah, they've my mom's kind of adjusted to where the places she goes and the things she wants to do. She likes those little small towns up in the along the Appalachian Mountains on the East Coast here. Um, she just likes to go to the small towns that have all the unique, quirky shops and antique stores and stuff like that. That's what she likes to do. She these days, not so much the sightseeing and going to national parks or state parks that have major monuments or big museums. We did a lot of that when I was growing up as a kid. Not so much more of that left really to do anymore. Is my backdrop there? That way you don't see my bathroom into my bathroom. uh So yeah, I wanted to talk about my travels, and I asked my dad yesterday if he could find some photos and send me some photos of the travel trailer type campers that we used to go all over the place in, and if he had pictures from when we went out to the Rockies, when we went to Yellowstone, um, up into Canada, when we went up into the Adirondacks part of the state of New York. I know a lot of people who don't get out much, who don't have the fortunate ability to travel like that. If they you say New York, and like I would say probably 80% people's minds go straight to the city, go straight to New York City. You say New York, and they're like, oh, New York City, New York Mets, New York Yankees, the big city stuff. The, and there's a whole hell of a lot more to that state than just the big city. Um, so yeah, there's the Adirondacks part of New York State that are very mountainous, and lots of small and medium-sized lakes, and great scenery, great places to go hiking, mountain biking, and camping, and all that fun stuff. So there's a lot more to the state of New York than what most people's minds jump to when they hear the words New York. But yeah, I mean we used to travel all over the place. Yep, I agree. Small towns are cool. Yellowstone is probably one of the coolest things in the United States. That if you have the opportunity to go see Yellowstone Park and the big geyser, the Old Faithful is what they nicknamed it. So it's a big geyser that shoots up steam and from the sulfur, chemical, natural minerals and stuff create in the fault zones uh, that earthquakes happen with. That's a really, really incredible part of the country in the state of Wyoming. Right? Is it Wyoming? Where's it's out there in one of them square states, as my dad always refers to them. Yellowstone National Park is, in fact, in the wonderful state of Wyoming. I was right. Grand Canyon's in Utah. Badlands are up through the Dakotas and parts of Montana and Minnesota. The Badlands, when you go up through there, through the Dakotas, Minnesota, and into Montana, there are lots of freaking fields filled with prairie dogs. If you don't know what a prairie dog is, look it up. They are funny looking creatures with really unique habits and along the touristy roads where you are passing through those states and you're driving, and just on the side of the road is just these massive fields with all these little holes in the ground, and there's hundreds and hundreds of prairie dogs that popping up and down out of these holes, and you can get out and go walk out there amongst them. People are used to try to feed them, and somewhere in a box. And this is what pissed my dad off when he found this out yesterday when he was trying to find photos for me. Because when I did all these travels when I was a kid with my parents, this was like literally right before they had digital cameras. So the old DSLRs and the disposable cameras with film, good old fashioned film. Yeah, that's so all those pictures of all that stuff that we did are not digital. 95% of it is not digitalized. And my mom used to keep them in photo albums. She had probably a dozen photo albums. So like thousands of pictures, right? Of all of our journeys, all of our lifetime wanderings. And when they moved from one house to the next, to the next, to the next, she got tired of carrying all these photos in all these big bulky albums. So she went back to putting them in all the pictures in envelopes, just a stack of photos, shove them in an envelope and throw them in a shoebox, in your large shoe boxes. And she did something really freaking retarded. She didn't label anything, none of it. So we have like maybe 2,000-3,000 photos, printed photos that are just in envelopes in about 8 or 9 shoe boxes, size 12, size 13 shoe boxes that me and my brother wear, that she hung on to. And yeah, they're just stored like that, not labeled, not organized, just freaking, and thousands of photos like that. So my dad was trying to look through that stuff and find that stuff yesterday, well, last night, because they had a busy day yesterday. He couldn't hardly find anything for me to use, and he was completely baffled, and so am I, that he didn't have not one photo. He could not find one photo in all these shoeboxes of photos that was a picture of the main travel trailer that we had, our main camper trailer, parked in a campsite. So again, it's like, all the photos that were taken were of all the sightseeing stuff, all the monuments, all the, beautiful, gorgeous overlooks of the Grand Canyon and the sunsets and, this and that and everything else, but not of our campsite, not of the trailer being set up. Because again, back then it was rolls of film, not digital, so you didn't have SD cards and micro SD cards and massive storage to where you could take gazillions of photos and just, if you find that one, delete. If this was a little blurry, delete. If you didn't get everything in it that you wanted in it, delete. Take it again. Just take 500 photos and you might get 20 good ones out of them, right? That was not how it was as a kid. It was, and I was always taught how to take a good photo, things to make sure that you got what you want in frame, make sure it's focused, hold it super close to your face, insanely still. If you can, tuck your elbows into your rib cage to stabilize yourself as much as possible. If you're not using a tripod, all those things, lighting, angles, all that stuff. My dad was teaching me, because he started off in college as a photography major, and then went into the computer world and video conferencing and went in that direction. But yeah, so I unfortunately don't really have any photos to show y'all. So hopefully I'm not losing credibility in telling y'all that I've literally been, and I say this as in, we not just drove through it, but we actually stopped and did something, went somewhere specifically besides getting gas, going to the bathroom, or getting food. We actually stopped and did something in every single state in the United States. I've been fortunate to be able to say that I have been to and in every single state in the United States. I've been to Alaska twice. I've been to Hawaii like 3 or 4 times. I've been to Puerto Rico. I've been to all, mainland, from California to Maine to I've been up in Canada too. Nova Scotia, beautiful coastline up in Nova Scotia, freezing cold, but even in the summertime, like, their highs are in the upper 50s and lower 60s is their hottest parts of their summer up there, pretty much. I've been through Quebec, and I've been over to Vancouver, Canada, up above Washington and Oregon, Washington State, and that area. So yeah, been to every state in the United States, done something, seen something in every single state, and been all through up in Canada quite a bit, numerous times. I have been in South America a good bit: Honduras, Mexico, Chile, Peru, Ecuador, Brazil. And I've been over in Europe just a little bit. And I've been to Australia. My parents have been to Australia a couple times. Lucky them. They went to Australia and New Zealand. I've been to Thailand, and I've been to Guam, and a handful of other places. I have not been to. I would love to go to Egypt. Egypt is a place, and that's like the only part of Africa that I care to go to. The rest of Africa can, yeah, but Egypt. And is Egypt really, really Africa? Yeah, Mediterranean area. Yeah, I've been to Italy. I've been to Spain. Seville, Spain is where I went when they did the running of the bulls. I got a T-shirt. I literally have in my room underneath a double window. I built a bench that goes across the whole window. Uh, that the lid lifts up, and it's just filled with shirts. I have so many freaking shirts. Couple pairs of pants, but 90% of it is shirts. I have so many freaking shirts. I'm good without going to Madagascar, Bama. That would be cool, but I hear you can get in a lot of trouble in Madagascar. So, yeah. You want to go to New York and California? See, now the handful of times that I've been out in California, been to San Francisco. I was actually stationed in San Diego area. Worked on the amphib base that's on Coronado Island, which is just right there next to San Diego. And I've been on that Coronado Bridge that kind of twists and turns as well as goes up. Very interesting, very neat bridge. I've been on that bridge in the car during a small earthquake, and the bridge, like in the cars, like we were all stopped in traffic, going about 3 miles an hour and 0 miles an hour when this actually happened, as it happened. But the earthquake caused the bridge to do this deal. And you could see from the one end of the bridge all the way to where I was only about maybe a fifth of the way, a quarter of a mile onto the bridge when it happened, so I could see like the rest of the bridge in front of me, and just watching it do this weird shit from the earthquake. That was one hell of an experience, watching that bridge go on wonky on us while I'm on it in my car. So, yeah, good engineering. Built the bridge well enough to withstand that, with a whole crap ton of vehicles on it. But yeah, if you ever get a chance to go to Yellowstone National Park and see the geyser that shoots up like every 15 to 17 minutes. And that's why they call it Old Faithful, is because it's almost to a T on the clock. Shoots up massive amount of sulfur water, 30 to 40 feet up into the air. Does that like every 15 to 17 minutes. It does that. You can watch that. The Yellowstone Lodge that's there, literally like 100 yards from where the geyser is, where Old Faithful is. Really, really super old lodge, tons of history. I think it had been burnt down once or twice. Smashed to hell in a severe snow blizzard once or twice. That place has been through hell and back. And you can stay there. You can sleep there. It's a fully functioning hotel. It's expensive as hell. It's hundreds and hundreds of dollars a night. The elevator, the working elevator that's in it, is one of those really old fashioned elevators where you have the bellhop guy, running it, with the wire accordion gate that goes across it. So yeah, neat elevator. Another fun fact is my grandfather, my mom's dad, he used to be an elevator mechanic, repair guy. He used to work on elevators up north and down in Florida, Miami area for a little bit when they moved there. So yeah. Again, I'm so mad that I wasn't able to put pictures and show you guys all this cool stuff, just because my mom's fault. I get to blame my mom for a lot of things. It's all her fault. What are y'all talking about? Why the heck? It's Sunday morning. Like, people went to church or about to go to church, and y'all are talking about getting baked. Come on, brand new American. What the hell? Oh, good to see you, buddy. Good to see you. Yeah, so I traveled not only camping and backpacking, which I did mostly through Scouts. My gateway into that was through Scouts. But with the family, with my parents and my brother, just me and him, just the two of us. World was built for families of four, is what my dad has said many a times. And I agree with him. Once you go from 2 kids to 3 kids or more, then like all of a sudden you got to get a much bigger vehicle, aiming for something with the 3rd row seating. Then you got to have a much larger dinner table, bigger house for more bedrooms. Everything's got to change once you have more than 2 kids. So yeah, I agree with my dad. The world is really built for families of 4. The American world here in the U.S. Freaking, when I was in Thailand, man, there's people I got to see firsthand. People on little mopeds and little scooters, tiny little scooters, and they, the mom would have a baby, an infant in front of her, strapped in front of her, and then she'd have like 3 or 4 kids piled back behind her. I don't know how the heck she drove that thing 25, 30 miles an hour with freaking her and 6 kids with her on it. And they stayed, and she kept the balance and kept the thing moving, and the kids all sat still. Yeah, that was crazy. And there's lots of them all over the place, zipping around all over the place. They do that. That's how they commute with their families, because I mean, just the population concentration there in those cities, that you kind of have to do it that way. Otherwise, you have a vehicle, you got a car or a small pickup truck, and you sit in traffic for hours and hours and hours just to move 5 miles. So it's the advantages of doing those little scooters or small motorbikes. Had their advantages. All right, so let's see. Fun stories. Yeah, so like I was saying with the prairie dogs, I know I'm all over the place. That's typically how I am. My dad has a picture. There is a picture in one of the damn photo boxes of my younger brother, when I was probably 9, 10, 11, somewhere around there. And my brother was about half that age. He was around 4 or 5 years old. So there's a photo of him looking through, a large pair of binoculars, big pair of binoculars, standing there in front of one of these prairie dog holes with the prairie dog poked up out of the hole. And they are literally from the end of his from the end of his spectacles to the prairie dog was like literally maybe 18 to 25 inches, somewhere around 2 feet or just under. Like they were so close. And my dad got a picture of that. So that's how unafraid of tourists these prairie dogs freaking were. And you just looked out in a field, a grass field, and for a couple miles, and there was just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these little things. And we were out there, did that trip back in like 95, I want to say, 94 or 95. My dad was, I believe, between jobs where he left a company that got sold, that he was kind of one of the top brass, and he was, I think, starting a new company. And so, I mean, he had all his bonuses and stuff, so he was able to take off like 5 weeks out of the summer, 4.5, 5 weeks of the summer, and we just went and had a big 26-foot long travel trailer that he hauled behind an itty bitty 6-cylindered Chevy Astro van. And that thing was a freaking beast to be hauling that size of a trailer up through the mountains, up through those overpasses, thousands of miles, that whole damn summer. And there were roads that we took that he probably should not have been pulling that trailer on, because the road was like this and the trailer was like this. It's like you had maybe about 3 inches on each side of the wheel wells of pavement, and it was on the side of the mountain, and the cliff was like hundreds of feet down. And there were some cutout tunnels of the mountain sides of the mountains that the trailer could barely squeeze through. It was bad, and my mom was a nervous ass wreck. Yeah. You had one of those Astro vans? Yeah, the ones that were made in the early to mid 90s were freaking built like damn tanks. I just remember all the places we drove in that thing and took that thing, and its hauling capabilities. I believe what my dad said was so great about it was rear wheel drive, which really helped with the towing, supposedly. So that was kind of one feature that got provoked purchasing that vehicle versus something else at the time. And we had it was bucket front seats and bucket back seats, and then a decent amount of trunk space behind us. But me and my brother sitting in those bucket seats. And again, this was before technology had it. He had gotten one of those small TVs, like the 12 by 14 TVs, that had the VCR deck on the bottom of it. If anybody remembers those. So the TV had a built-in VCR deck on the bottom of the TV there, so with all the buttons, so you can play and fast forward and rewind your VCR tapes. And that was I think Christmas before that year was when Toy Story, the original Toy Story, came out. And so my brother, being that 4 or 5 years old age, he freaking loved Toy Story, like obsessed over the movie Toy Story. And so my mom had gotten that on a VCR tape, and we popped that in. And in 5 weeks, we watched Toy Story almost every day, once every day. Almost every day we watched Toy Story. But yeah, so my dad built like just a little stand that angled the TV upwards a little bit, and sat that on the floor of the van right between our 2 bucket seats, and we could watch movies, tape after tape, while we were driving to all our destinations. Again, this was before before you had tablets and your headrest TVs and the drop down TVs and all your vehicles. This was well before that. So I'm not that old. I'm only 35. But it's just to think back about how, just 20 years ago, 20 to 25 years ago, we didn't have digital cameras in the 90s. We didn't have, CDs until the very, very late 90s. Just all that technology stuff. My aunt had and she was like totally stoked about it. I had an aunt, and then one of my brother's friends, one of his good friends, his mom had a a convertible, and then my aunt had a convertible at one point. No, I'm not gonna bust out the family photo again. Y'all are safe from that. I won't do that ever again. I promise. Never again. He's still making fun of me for that. But yeah, had a convertible that had the car phone, the infamous car phones. Those did not last very long. Cars were not built with those for too many years, but just a handful of years, I believe. But when they had them, and it always seemed like there was convertibles that had them. And so yeah, those damn car phones. Everybody thought that was the coolest shit, the coolest stuff. So, we had in one of our campsites, I believe at one of the national parks out there in the Midwest, there was, we were in the campground and had our bicycles out, and we were riding our bicycles all over the campground, and there were probably a couple of trails there at the campground for us to ride our bikes on. And this was also at a time where parents weren't afraid to let their kids disappear for 3 hours. And we knew when to come back, and we knew that we had to check in every 2 to 3 hours. Nowadays it don't work like that no more. World's not that safe. Kids aren't quite as responsible with that as we were. Like we knew, trying to get my kids to come home when the freaking streetlights come on, like, and that's simple, right? That's basic. But damn, do they struggle with that. How you doing, Mimo? What's up? Good morning. But so we had in the campsite, mom had made dinner in the camper, and we were about to sit down for dinner, and this freaking elk. And if you don't know what an elk is, it's an oversized deer, essentially. It's like the gap between a moose and a deer, and a white-tailed deer. So an elk came into our campsite, just walked straight up to our trailer, right there at the picnic table, a handful of feet between the door of the trailer where I was, and where our freaking bicycles were sitting outside, parked with the kickstands. And this elk went and used the end of my handlebar on my bicycle, which I had those guards that clamp on to the end of a handlebar that people with mountain bikes, trail bikes, would always put on their mountain bikes, to protect the sides of their hands in case a tree got clipped, or if they went down, fell over. That bar on the end of the handle bar that would protect the hand from getting damaged. So it used the elk used that end of my handlebar on my bicycle to scratch an itch behind its ear. Yeah. And I was like 10, 11 years old, and I started screaming at this thing to leave my bike alone. And I was ready to go out there and chase it off again. Like, this was one of those times where it was probably not good that I was as fearless as I was. because I was like, my dad grabbed me and said, "Don't you go out there," because he knew what those things could do if you pissed it off. I'd get bucked and broncoed, and could have ended up with some broken ribs and a broken face if that thing didn't run off out of fear. If it decided to fight back, I could have really been damaged, busted up good. But yeah, I was so mad that that deer was messing with the elk was messing with my bike. I was so mad it was messing with my bike because I love that mountain bike. I had actually won in some kind of a contest. I forget what contest it was or what it was for, but I had won that bike, and it was a nice mountain bike. Not the level of mountain bikes that my parents would have bought me. It was definitely a step up from that. So I was really protective over it, and really pissed off that that elk was using it as a scratching post. So that was pretty bad. Yeah. So there's a camping traveling story for you. The kids were supposed to go to the church program for them this morning, and I got there, and the wonderful ladies that run, the main two ladies that run that program, well, there's like 4 or 5 of them that team up and do it. The main two were out of town, unable to be there, so they canceled the kids program. So they're at home, they're watching TV, goofing around, doing other stuff. But yeah. So the other half of today's broadcast, I wanted to share with y'all. We're gonna jump into knives because I know a lot of y'all are from our knife community. But I was gonna go over and show off the knives that I grew up with. Most of them. I still have most of them. There's a couple like the Gerber Paraframe. That thing, I had one of those, and I used and abused and beat the hell out of that thing, and it worked. It did what it needed to do for quite a number of years, but I ended up destroying it, sharpened the hell out of it, and then destroying it again. So it got either lost or thrown away, or I don't know, something happened to it. But how many of us had a Gerber at some point in our lives between the age of 5 and 20? All right. But here's one that my dad gave to me. Oh, I want to say when I was maybe 8 or 9 years old. My first knife was straight up just your standard SD Classic, your Victorinox SD Classics. I had my dad gave me one of those that he went and he filed down and dulled the heck out of the main cutting blade, so that I would not, really hurt myself. Because he gave it to me when I was like maybe 4 or 5 years old, probably 5 years old. So that was my first ever pocket knife that he gave me, and it was just a little SD Classic. And then I begged and begged. We were at some kind of craft fair festival thing, and I begged and begged for this guy right here. It is a completely homemade wood. The knife itself, the blade itself is wood. The handle is wood. The only thing that's not wood is the 2 brass pins that are holding the damn thing together. This was a handmade, hand-carved wood slip joint. Let's go size reference. Let me grab something that everybody knows. Yeah, yeah. Size compare it with the pinion. So yeah, it is right about the same size as the pinion. But yeah, so when I was about 6 or 7, I saw this at a craft fair, um, in 1994, as it says, Trail 1994. I begged for this and got it. I probably paid for most of it with what little ounce of an allowance that I was being given at the time. Uh, my mom was always against that kind of stuff. She didn't like my my mom hated Nerf guns. She hated squirt guns. She hated um, toy guns that made noises. She freaking hated anything that made noises. Uh, and that was one of my aunts, one of her sisters, would always, for birthday, Christmas, a visit, she would always gift me some kind of a gun because she knew that it would piss my mom off. So that was kind of a fun little sibling deal. But yeah, so this knife, and a fun story about this knife is, and I've told it in one of my videos a long time ago, that I made, but I ended up, kid show and tell at school. I brought this thing for show and tell one time when I was in grade school, and I was in like kindergarten or first grade or whatever I was in, back when they used to allow kids every Friday or Thursday or whatever it was. We did, show and tell where every kid could bring something in that they love, that's new, and their new thing that they spend the most time with, to show off to the rest of your class. So I brought this guy in for show and tell, and I got in so much damn trouble. This was back in a time where in Georgia, uh, they didn't suspend you for doing something like that. Um, uh, I did get sent to the principal's office, and my mom had to come pick it up and collect it. And I got a heavy reprimand that this is too dangerous to bring to school and not appropriate to bring to school. So, all right, Gonzo's here. How you doing, Gonzo? So yeah, so that's I will never ever get rid of this. Um, Hell, I might even have myself cremated with it because it's wood. But then, probably another 6 months to a year later, my dad gave me this Swiss Army knife, this Victorinox, rebranded. I don't know what the hell Folex was, but it was some kind of company. And I don't know which model this is either. I'd have to look it up. But still have this guy. It's a little bit bigger than your typical sack. So here's your typical SD Classic. So yeah, little bit bigger. Gives you 2 blades, a large blade, a small blade, and a large blade on it. So this was my next knife that I had gotten, and he did not dull the blade on this one. And it's been sharpened a handful of times, not too many times. See, it still has. I can still sharpen it a couple more times before it reaches the end there. But yeah, so it didn't get used as much because I very quickly went from this to my first Boy Scout knife. Boy Scouts of America. So yeah, and this one is, these were made and they're still made, but this one is Camillus brand up in New York. If y'all can see that, Camillus, New York. There's a couple of companies that made these through the years. I think I've got a second one that was made by somebody else that I couldn't tell you at the moment. But yeah, this was like the legendary classic deemed Boy Scout knife that I got when I was a Cub Scout. Again, probably 12 or 13 years old. Yeah. So this was actually like truly my first real knife. My first real knife with a good sized blade. And again, a slip joint. So I had yet at that point in my life owned and used a anything other than a slip joint. So that's was kind of interesting to think about and reflect on. But yeah. So then I graduated, and I want to say I got it in like 8th grade. Yeah, I want to say 8th grade. Oh, I almost went and dropped it. I got this buck, and this was my first locking knife. So back lock with a nice, super grippy rubber handle, full sized, 3-inch blade. Yeah, first locking knife. It was not. I saw the I was looking at your Buck 110s, but I opted for this because I liked the rubber handle. I liked the rubber handle, and I liked how lightweight it was, and compared to the Buck 110, it's definitely lighter weight than your standard Buck 110. And I want to say it's 440. I forget what the name of it is. I'd have to search it up again. But yeah, and this was the knife that went backpacking and camping with me a lot, and I used this guy almost exclusively for about 4 years, straight. Yeah, so at that time in the late 90s, early 2000s, this was my knife, and I freaking loved it. Then my dad, at some point, gave me a fixed blade. And so I had this guy. I couldn't even tell you who makes it. Well, yep, here we go. I wouldn't even know how to say that. Let me see. Can y'all read that? It says KLA-TRA-SO. So Claw Trousseau, Sollinger's stainless, hand forged, and it has again because it ended up breaking. It had some kind of a foresty print on it, etching on it with a deer stag. Is what's on it. Yep, there's the deer stag. So yeah. Yeah. So he gave me this. And it's a substantially sized fixed blade. He also gave me another one that was smaller. But I used it for a lot of things I shouldn't have done with a fixed blade. Lots of prying. Lots of stabbing trees with it. But yeah, look at how bent up that tip is. Look at that. Look at that. I was a monster to this thing. Oh man. Oh, the memories. that this guy has. And this is a good 8-inch, well, 6.5-inch long blade, somewhere around that, 6.5 inch blade. I don't know. Let me see. I got a ruler here. I got a ruler. Let me see if I can do this for y'all. Where's my one? So yeah, 7.5-inch blade. It's a 7.5-inch blade. It's about the same size as something else that I have. When it's not freezing cold outside. But yeah, so I had this, and that's a actual deer stagged handle. And so I don't know what happened when it broke, what I was doing with it when it broke, but as you can see the tip, I did shit that I really should not have done with it. Oh, this is the leather sheath that I picked up at a I want to say my dad got it at a flea market. But this was my sheath that I carried this guy in. Nice little leather sheath with a good belt clip on it. And so yeah, I mean, it's good 20 years old, almost 25 years old. But yeah, and then when I worked at the Boy Scout camp up in Clayton, Georgia, Camp Rainy Mountain, everybody should know what this knife is. Your good old M16 by CRKT. And this one got stamped by the camp's logo, the Camp Rainy Mountain CRM logo. So yeah, I got this when I was up there. So yeah, I love that camp. That camp, Camp Rainy Mountain in Northeast Georgia. That place changed my life. Really shaped me in so many ways to be the person that I am. The life experiences that I had, the things that I learned at that camp, the maturity that I gained working up there during the summers. I was there as a lifeguard and worked on the waterfront staff. I also got into whitewater kayaking while I was up there, and did a lot of backpacking and hiking while up there, and yeah, just rock climbing. Got into rock climbing when I was up there. So yeah, that place changed me a lot. I did a lot of things up there and learned a lot of things up there at that camp. So yeah, so those were the knives that I started with up until and then again I had a Gerber Paraframe, and I had a Leatherman at one point, and the not Leatherman branded multi-tool Leatherman Mimikies. I had a couple of those. I had some smaller. My dad started me off with a much smaller one of these. I think he had like 3 or 4 of them of different sizes. This one's the biggest. My thoughts is to possibly repurpose the handle part of it and put a different blade, get a different blade put on it, because it's a nice handle. It's been weathered and smoothed out, good grip. Yeah.
Not true.
Maybe I should send it to somebody to put a new blade on it. Maybe. Should I pass it to somebody that would be willing to put a new handle on it or a new blade on it? Do something cool with that handle? That's probably what I should do. But who else is excited for Blade Show? This is going to be my first year going. I am so stoked. And I'm going to be camping and taking the motorcycle up there. If you're not in the chat for Blade Show on Instagram, at Scott N threw up, please join. Yeah. You're right, Gonzo. Absolutely right. I need a new blade for that handle because it's a nice handle. And it's got history and a little bit of meaning to me. But yeah, so I'm super stoked for Blade Show. It's going to be my first time ever going. I haven't been up to Atlanta, which I'm from Atlanta, grew up on the northeast side of Atlanta. So I haven't been to Atlanta in years. I took the wife up to Six Flags a couple of times, 2 years, but that was probably 6 or 7 years ago. So that's how long it's been since I've been in Atlanta. We drove through Atlanta. Took the family through Atlanta. Going up to Tennessee this winter. So I got to see it from just being on the road, but we didn't stop or do anything. But yeah, so it's been a while. But I'm very still, it's crazy how you can leave a place for 10, 15, 20 years and you come back to it and, still know your way around a decent amount. That's always kind of fun to be able to do that. Atlanta is not a small city by any means. It wasn't a small city when I was 5 years old, and it's definitely not a small city now. That place is just massive. So that's all I really have time for y'all today. I know a lot of y'all are flipping over to Tri-State, getting your Hollow Bi Grind religion from him. So I'll be there in a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and end this and wish y'all a good rest of your Sunday. And thanks for popping in. Thanks for joining. I will be live again next Sunday at the same time and possibly doing a giveaway. A small giveaway, but still a giveaway. I appreciate every one of y'all, and I look forward to meeting a good handful of people at Blade Show. So thanks a lot, and I'm out of here.